Welcome back, everybody, to the CHG podcast. My name is RJ, and today we have another special guest. We have MrTibbz himself, a good friend of Gemini's, good friend of mine. He has been asking to be on the podcast for quite some time here, but I've just been busy, unfortunately. But I'm finally done. I'm finally good, and we got MrTibbz here.
Thank you.
Say
Thanks,
hello.
RJ, for having me on. Hello, everyone. Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. We've been wanting to do this for a little while now. But yeah, both of our schedules have been manic, to say the least, I would say.
Mm-hmm. And as you might be able to tell, MrTibbz himself is over the pond, as we like to say. So that is an 8-hour time difference that we also have to figure out as well. So
it's been madness.
It's not as easy as we would like it to be. But anyway, so we're gonna have him on the channel or on the podcast here. It's gonna be a lot of fun. But we will start our podcast as we do every other one about what we are playing. Now, as for you, MrTibbz, I will ask you, what are you playing both off camera and on camera, since you do have a YouTube channel yourself?
Off camera, I have been playing Abe's Odyssey on the original PS1.
Okay. The OG one.
Yeah, because it's been obviously put on the PlayStation Classics collection.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I've been playing that a lot. On camera, we have just finished our Sonic Origins playthrough, which was a lot of fun to record, a lot of nostalgia for that. And now we're going into October, where hopefully we've got something spooky coming up. I won't reveal too many details because I want to leave it as a bit of surprise, or in case of that it don't happen, that I might have to change my plans a little bit.
Yeah, nothing worse than announcing something and then fuck, you gotta change it, or it doesn't happen. I know what you're talking about. We also do have some spooky stuff too, just so you guys know. Shameless plug. But that sounds good. Which Sonic game was it out of the Origins? I know there's 1, 2, 3 Knuckles, and then also CD. So which one were you playing?
I did all of them. I did them in chronological order. The only one that I didn't do was CD. Mm-hmm. But I did Sonic 1, 100%, getting all the Chaos Emeralds. Sonic 2, 100%, all Chaos Emeralds. And then Sonic 3 and Knuckles, I did 100% with all Chaos and Super Emeralds as well.
Oh, I didn't know they had Super Emeralds. I do not know much about Sonic, to be absolutely honest. Well, I mean, I already told you a little bit ago, but yeah, I'm not the deepest Sonic fan out there. Although I did play them as a kid. When I was a kid, we had this weird, on PC too. This is like mid to late 90s PC right here. All right, so very primitive. But there was this, what we had. It was a disc called the Sega Smash Pack. All right. And it had 7 games on it, and I know at least one of them was Sonic 3 with Knuckles. Now I don't remember if it was all of them in one little package, but I remember playing that one because I remember we played as Knuckles, and we didn't know who we didn't really know who they were, but we just loved, my brother and I would love playing as Knuckles or Tails. Because just so much more traversal abilities, right? Tails can fly or hover or whatever, and Knuckles can float, and we just loved that, right? I think my brother was particularly fond of Knuckles, as when we were children, but that's about as far as it went for me until I played Sonic 2. When do you remember? I'm sure you remember this. Remember when the PlayStation Network got hacked?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Like 10 years ago. Okay, so when it got hacked, for those who remember, there's some kids now who just are too young for that. Oh my gosh,
during the war.
Oh my gosh, during the war. Oh my gosh, I just realized that. There were some kids now who just were too young to even have that matter to them. So they probably don't even. Oh my god. Okay, I guess I'm talking about this anyway. So when it happened, for those who don't remember or didn't know, PSN got hacked famously, and it was down for like a month when they were trying to figure this out, because this happened in like 2011. All right. And when it came back on, they gave everybody, all PlayStation owners, a welcome back package, welcome back / we're sorry package, and of it was you got to choose 2 of 5 games that, for everybody, just free. And I think you got like a good window of time to redeem those too. And one of them I chose was Sonic 2, because that was available, and that was the only reason why I played it. But I played it and I beat it. Got all the the trophies. There was like 14 trophies or whatever, and I was like, okay, cool. But that's it. That's about as far as it goes.
Done.
That's about as far as it goes. At least for like classic Sonic. For classic Sonic, that's as far as it goes. Because I have played Sonic 06.
My god!
I have played it twice.
True masochistic right there.
I played it. When I first played it, when I worked at GameStop. Are you familiar with GameStop?
Yeah, I know about GameStop.
Okay.
They're like obviously the American version of our kind of game store.
Game.co,
Yeah.
I think, is for you guys.
It's like your version of that.
Yes. So I worked there for some time, and I was on this like rampage of just like playing shitty ass games. All right. Like I was just like, I don't know why. I was like, I just want to play just a string of bad titles, like, because I don't know why, I just wanted to know, I guess. And one of them was Sonic 06. I was like, because everybody knows what Sonic 06, so I was like, let's do this. And even my coworkers were like, are you sure, man? Like, you absolutely sure you want this? And I'm like, I don't know, but I'm gonna do it. And so I boot up the game, and I'm like, just like, oh man, here we go. And I'm playing just by myself, right? Just by myself, and like what sucks is that the beginning cutscene, like the beginning cinematic, is actually pretty good, in my opinion.
It does. It draws you in so well, and it's like it's like come to the dark side. You want to, and it's awful.
And not only that, it looks good for 2006.
And for an Xbox 360, for an Xbox 360 game, you look at it and you think, holy crap, like, comparing it to today, it still holds up really well.
The high res cinematics that the game has, there's not too many of them, but the few that are there are still pretty impressive to this day, which is quite surprising, as like a PS3/360 title. I mean, it pretty much came like a little bit after the PS3 even launched, so like it's very impressive still, but it is all downhill from there, as you know. Like, I've never been more broken. Sorry, I've never been more quickly broken than with that game. I almost gave up immediately. It just instantaneously, I almost gave up, because when I finally got control of Sonic and I moved that camera, I almost gave up. Gave up. That camera is the most atrocious camera I've ever used in a game, and I almost was like, am I doing this? Like, am I not about to do this?
This is it. Like,
yeah, is this about to be it? Because what helped me, because that game came out so early in the PS3's life cycle that there were no trophies for it, right? There were achievements on the 360, but there were no trophies because those weren't a thing yet. So I literally had nothing to lose with this title, right? As a trophy hunter, I had nothing to lose because there's no trophies. I could have just quit right there, but I didn't.
You should have done. You should have.
I should have quit.
Run for the hills, like. My earliest experience was Sonic 06. Now, I bought it day one.
Oh no, you were a day. Oh no,
I was a day one at Xbox 360.
Oh no,
and I picked the Shadow campaign, and I found out that
that's the best one. Apparently,
it was the best one, to the point where I could control the enemies with the camera.
Yes.
Was and stuff like that. So I was forcing enemies to like go down cliffs and stuff like that and move the shit out of my way because I was coming through. And I just looked at this and I was like, how has no one beta tested this? This was awful.
Or maybe they did, but it just didn't matter. You
Oh.
know? Because I mean, the game has been talked about to up and down to death. Like the whole story of it. Like for those who don't know, like you can easily find stuff on YouTube. It has been just researched all to hell, and it was famously rushed. Famously rushed. They wanted Sega wanted to get that November 2006 release date so bad. I think it was also was it the 15th anniversary of Sonic at the time?
Yes, it was, and they wanted to go into a more serious, serious direction with it.
Yeah, well, just one second then on that. With Shadow though, because when I first played it, I did all 3 campaigns, right? I did Sonic first, and then I did Silver, which, like he sucks to fight against, and he sucks to use. Like he is just a garbage character in that game. At least he is garbage. Anyways, and then I did Shadow, and Shadow is. I'm not saying like good as in the sense of like the story's good. He's just the best one to use. His attacks are the easiest to take enemies out the quickest. I had the least amount of problems getting through the game with Shadow. And when I found out, like, yeah, he's if for those who did play all 3 campaigns, which is not many people, but for those that did, Shadow is known as like he's the best one. At least he's the less frustrating character to get through the game with. And then I beat it, and then I did like the secret campaign where you finally play a Supersonic, and then you get kissed by a human.
Bestiality.
Yup, because Sonic's a kid's game.
Rated E for everyone. Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And then I beat it, and I was just like, oh my gosh. And then I found out like those medals that you find in the game actually go towards other things. I was like, nope, not doing it. I'm not doing it. Nope, absolutely fucking not. I am not doing this. That would be masochistic, and I am not about that life.
Says the Cuphead player.
Bro, I would play Cuphead any day of the week. I would do any Cuphead chat. I would do that fucking lobber chef salt baker challenge that I've seen before. I would do that easily any day over trying to get those fucking medals in Sonic 06. Okay, and then I played it again for the second time with Travis on our channel. It's on our channel.
I have to watch that. Oh my god!
We only did the Sonic campaign because we couldn't handle the other. Travis was about to die. Like he wasn't even playing the game, and he was like literally at the edge, like at the end of his rope. He almost like he was like, I can't do no more after this. It took us 4 months, I think, to get through that fucking game.
Oh, that's like my normal upload schedule.
So we played it twice. So if you want to see us play Sonic 06, it's on the channel. Now it's old, so there's no face cam. It's just audio. All right. So don't expect our facial reactions to anything because you're not going to get it. But if you want to hear us die verbally, audibly, go there. Anyway, so what did you want to bring up about the 15th anniversary and all that stuff with Sonic?
Well, the reason why they kind of went that kind of direction in terms of, well, spoilers for Sonic 06 if you haven't heard it by now.
Are you fucking kidding? First of all, who is going to actively search out Sonic 06 to play and actually cares if it gets spoiled? Okay, so you haven't played it. First of all, good. You haven't played it. Good on you. And secondly, even if you care, you don't care. Okay?
No,
if you care, you don't care. But anyways,
well, they killed Sonic off at one point. Yes. They killed him off in the game,
which is good. Should have stayed dead.
Well, and then they gave Sonic a human love interest.
Mm-hmm, he sure did.
Which is like, oh my god, like, what are you doing? And it's like, you look at that game and you think, there was so much potential. Like, as a game, there was so much potential of actually it being good, but it was so drummed down by silly decisions with production, and like you said, it was rushed the hell out of, that it was just a mess.
It's the biggest mess you'll ever play of any game. Like it, honestly, okay. So I
I
respect.
don't know. Resident Evil 6 is quite up there.
Well, we'll get to that. But yeah, like I mean, I respect your your opinion on feeling that there was potential with the game, and maybe there was in 2006, right? Maybe when people played it in '06, or maybe like a year or two afterwards, you could see like, okay, yeah, I can see where they're going with all this shit, right? But I played it in like 2013 or something around there, 2014, right? I could not see a damn thing. Like I saw nothing redeeming about this game. Like going to the NPCs and just her, and that's all you get. Just, like, are you kidding me? Like how? And when you talk to humans, they're just her, and they just move their arms just all the time. They just never stop moving their arms to communicate that they're talking to you, but they never stop. And I'm just like, what the fuck? And some of the powers you're supposed to buy don't work half the time when they're supposed to, which is very annoying. It's just, but I think everything comes down to this: the fact it was rushed. Now I don't know how much time they actually worked on the game. I don't know if they only worked on it for like 6 months, a year. I don't know, right? I don't remember. Maybe that's talked about. I don't remember. But either way, that game needed at least another year. At least another
Oh,
year.
it needed so much more work on it.
Easily. Yeah, easily. At least another year. I'm not saying only a year. I'm saying at least a year. Minimum a year. But it was the 15th anniversary of Sonic, so they couldn't live without missing that deadline. but like man, I can only
But,
imagine how many returns game stores got on Sonic 06.
oh,
Oh
it
gosh.
must have been so bad. It must have been
Oh,
so bad.
oh my gosh. It's funny though
But
because
they
it,
redeemed
it
it with their other anniversaries, I suppose.
I mean, I wouldn't say redeemed. It's more like they're just realizing what works and doesn't work anymore. But it's just Sonic is such a funny. Actually, you know what? Okay, we're gonna get off track. We'll come back to Sonic in a second. All right. But so he's playing Sonic Origins on his channel. He's playing Abe's Odyssey offline, which is great. Just real quick for me, I have been playing Dark Souls, the first one on
Oh,
PS3. On PS3, I'm playing the OG one first. I'm not playing the remastered yet. Um, and I'm doing it for two reasons. One, so I can get two different platinums, and two, because I'm someone that loves seeing the history of a series as it goes on, right?
mm,
And yeah, I could. You're still technically kind of doing that if you play Dark Souls remastered and then like Dark Souls 2 Scholar of the First Sin remaster and all that stuff. I guess it still counts, but to me, as a purist, it doesn't count. And so I'm playing the first one on PS3 first because it's still active. The servers are still online. PvP is still a thing.
really?
And oh yeah, absolutely. They never cut them down. They never shut them down. So the people are still playing. I mean, it's only fucking like OP players, but you know. But here's the thing: I have accidentally found. I was telling David this the other day. I have accidentally found a farming location.
Oh,
So, so for those who may not know Dark Souls, and those who do, well, for those who do know Dark Souls, so it's not too deep into the game. It's a little bit after. So you find the first blacksmith, and then in that area, in that castle, there's like a big old demon right there. Right now, you can't just run away from him if you want to, or try to take him out. It doesn't matter. Either way, you get past him and you get out to a new area called the Dark Root Garden, and then
yes.
you make your way around over there, and then you come across a sealed door that you need something called the Crest of Artorias to open. Now that blacksmith that you passed, he sells it. So I bought it. I had to grind a little bit because it's 20,000 souls, and that's a lot for where you are in the game. So I grinded, got it, and I was like, 'cause I want to know what was over there. And so I opened it up, and then I also opened up the hidden bonfire behind the fake wall. And so I was like, cool, got a resting spot. Let's figure out what the hell's going on over there. And then I'm getting murked, right? Because it has those forest guardians that are all chilling there. So I'm getting murked, right? But I'm taking out a couple because it's a good spot to farm because they give you like a couple thousand souls each, which is good because it's the most you can get from most regular enemies. And so I'm taking them out, and then I finally find the cat, the guardian cat, Alvina, right, for her covenant. And I'm like, oh, cool. So I join her covenant, and she's like, and here's this cat ring so that if you wear it, you can, you can she was saying, like, I'll summon you to defend the forest when intruders come. I don't know what the fuck that means. I'm just like, all right, cool. So I put on the ring, and I'm thinking like, all right. So I'm just running around the forest, and then I noticed, okay, yeah. So I'm like, okay, so these guys are all not hitting me anymore because I joined the covenant and stuff. So I'm like, okay, these are defenders of the forest offline. So I'm like, cool. But then I get this notification that's like, like transporting you to a new world. I'm like, wait, what?
Whoa, what's going on?
Chill, dude. I didn't ask for this. What's going on? and then I get taken to another dude's world, and I'm like, well, what the hell is going on? I'm like, oh, this is a PvP thing. Like, oh no. Because I'm like level, like, I don't know, 15. Like, I'm not ready for this. So the guy finds me, murks me like right away, right? No chance. I didn't even put a fight. So, but what I didn't realize was that the ring, like, as long as you have the ring, you keep getting transported. Well, if you're part of her covenant and you have the ring on, you keep getting transported, right? But I'm still like figuring this out, like, okay, how frequent does it happen? All this and that, right? And then so I'm like, okay, well, I still want to explore this forest because it's a good sized forest. I haven't really been through everywhere, right? So I'm trying to go through the rest of this forest. And in the midst of that, I'm still getting transported to other people's world, right? So I'm like, ah! But what I did was, I was like, you know what? I don't even care. So instead of fighting the guy, I just kept exploring the forest because you can still explore the forest. You just can't go in certain spots, but you can explore most of the regular forest. And I just wanted to know what was here, right? Because it'll still show you chests, it'll show you enemies, they just won't mess with you, right? So I'm like trying to get a feel for what's here so that when I'm back in my world, I'm good. But then what happened was I'm running around, and then because multiple people can invade someone's world to try to take him out, right? Someone else took out the guy.
Oh,
right? And because I see, like, on my screen, target destroyed, and I'm like, huh? What? Okay, all right, team effort, guys. High fives. But then I get like several 100,000 souls, and I'm like, what? Did I just find a grind spot unintentionally? So I'm like, yo, why the fuck would I play the game? Like, I could just do this. So that's what I did for a while.
Oh no.
I just kept the ring on and kept getting transported to people's places, and then I just kept fucking around with the forest. And then if someone else took out the guy, I'd get souls. And I'm like, fuck, hell yeah, that's a win-win for me. And then when I was done with the forest, like exploring it and everything, I was like, well, this is still a hella good spot to farm. So I would just kind of just chill and wait to get transported. And what I would do was I would just find a spot and just hide.
You cheap ass bitch, and come out hiding.
I just stayed there. I just fucking stayed there and wait for someone else to take the guy out. And I was like, because some of those dudes give you like almost 1 million souls when they die. So I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? So I'm like power leveling, just power leveling like crazy, dude. I'm just going up. And one guy found me, right? But then he rolled off the cliff.
Oh, I love it when shit like that happens.
I took it out. And I was like, that's another 880,000 souls for me. But some people have gotten mad at me. They're not happy at all because they caught on. They're not happy. Some dude just messaged me last night. He was like, don't you AFK in my world, you piece of shit. And I was like, I'll tell you, bro. But yeah. So yeah, I'm hella overpowered.
Yep, I can imagine.
I'm like level 93, which I am not supposed to be level 93. I should probably be like maybe somewhere in the 40s. maybe. Like I'm using weapons that I have no business using, just because, not because I glitched them, but because I found them, but they were too heavy at the time.
Yeah.
But now I can hold them because I just boosted up my endurance, so I can hold them. So I'm using weapons that I should not be using at all right now. But I don't give a fuck, because one, Dark Souls is fine, it's fun, but particularly this one, it's not that good in my opinion. It is so fucking primitive, which is not its fault. It came out in 2011. Okay, like, it's not the game's fault. It just hasn't aged
No,
very well. So
it is one of the worst ones in terms of technical wise. Like,
yeah, I'm not talking like other. I'm talking just technically, just gameplay. It's not smooth. It's very rudimentary. It's very slow, very slow. Um, and it's just it. Like, I was really getting like upset, not in a sense of like, oh, I just need to keep trying, I'll get to it, but just like, I'm just no longer having fun, and like, there's something must be different. Like, must be something. Am I missing something here? What, right? I don't know, but I'm thinking like, no, it's just this game is just old.
yeah.
And so I asked David, because David's a huge Souls fan. He was like, "No, it gets better. Trust me, it gets better." I'm like, "It better fucking get better, because
I
because I'm not
can't
having the
take
best
much
time."
more.
Yeah. So for games like that piss me off, I have no problems breaking them. It doesn't matter to me, especially when it's offline. It's not hurting anybody, and I have no problem. I'm sorry, I have no intention to ever do PvP where whereas I'm trying to actually take people out, like, on purpose. Like, that's because for a lot of players, that's what they do right after they're done. It's just PvP. I have no intention to do that. Once I'm done with Dark Souls, I get the platinum, I am moving on. Right. So I didn't say it was ethical. I didn't say it was honorable, but it's what I'm doing.
Get
And
good,
so,
Scrap.
yep. That's when we telling the bosses when I murk them in one hit.
You just
So yeah,
pull
that's
up
what
to
I'm playing.
Gwyn like, hi.
Yep. Yeah, well, I'm not that far yet. Actually, I got through Blighttown. I'm done with Blighttown. I'm in Sense Fortress now.
Oof.
Yeah. So, and here's the thing: like, no matter how high level you are, and no matter how OP your armor or weapons are, or your build or whatever, the levels are still the levels. Like, you can't change Blighttown. You know what I mean? Like, Blighttown is still Blighttown. It still sucks. And I can still get taken out very easily by those poison dart guys.
Oh,
Like,
oh
so,
no.
if the only thing, it just makes things a bit more manageable, but it doesn't. I'm still not walking through everything. You know, and I'm a Sense Fortress, and I'm not walking through that either. You know what I mean? Like if a boulder comes rolling my way, I'm gonna get taken out. Like, that doesn't change anything. So I'm still getting a challenge no matter how high level I am. But anyways, so we talked a little bit about Sonic already. Kind of went on a tangent a little early. We were going to talk about Sonic, but it just came up earlier than I thought. But I wanted to ask. We talked a little bit before. So you're excited about the new Sonic Frontiers, despite the hate that it's been getting, which I didn't even know it was getting the type of hate that you said, because people were criticizing the open world. I personally think I'm okay. I don't know. As an outside person, right, who's not a Sonic fan or a hater. I'm not a hater or a fan. I'm just someone who knows of Sonic. It's hard for me to definitively say whether the open world would be good or bad for Sonic, because Sonic has had such an up and down history with its games, right? And it seems to be that beyond colors and generations, whenever Sonic goes 3D, it just never works out. But open world has revitalized a couple other series, namely Zelda. And even though Dark Souls was already open world, it wasn't really like open world
It was
until
linear in terms of once you got what you needed to get from that area, no matter how long you spent in it, it was
Mhm.
always a case of, okay, you've now got to go to an Orlando or wherever, and it's
Yeah.
like that sort of structure. But for me, open world in Sonic is either It's gonna be a Sonic 06 sort of thing. It's promising so much. Whether it delivers on that promise is going to make or break it. But I do agree with you that 3D Sonic just hasn't worked. And I said this
Yeah.
on the finale of my Sonic Origins playthrough. I feel like they need to go back to basics and do another 16-bit Sonic game and kind of do a Sonic 4 type thing.
Hmm.
Like they did with Mania, but actually have a fully fleshed out story in a
Yeah.
2D 2D setting now.
I think what they could do is because you're right. Like, if you want to talk about 2D Sonic, everyone loves 2D Sonic, right? But we haven't had a original, brand new 2D Sonic since 4 episodes, part 1 and 2, I believe.
Mm.
And that was back in the day, right? On the PS3 360 era, right? And that was only a digital title. I don't think it was ever released physically. And I think it did all right. It didn't do anywhere near as bad as some of the 3D games. But I don't think it. I don't remember. I don't think it hit like the highs of the OG titles. But it still wasn't a bad game by any means. Um, but what I think they could do is, I agree. Like, I think if they went 2D, if they were like, hey, kind of like what they did with Sonic CD, right? Let's make let's make it 2D, but it's a new game and everything, but for a new hardware, new system, all that stuff, right? I think they should do a 2D Sonic for like PS5, Xbox Series X, whatever, Switch, but have the cutscenes be 3D. Like, what they never done is with the 2D games, they never had like, yeah, there's a story kinda,
Mm.
but like, I mean, like, there's never any words, there's never any, like, they never breaks from the cutscenes. It's just like Sonic or whoever goes to point A to point B. Robotnik shows up with a new baddie machine, take it out, and then maybe at the end of the game, like, some new villain shows up, right? You take him out. But like, I think what they could do if they want like a more cinematize it, no, whatever, make it more of a story, have cutscenes, but have those be 3D, but have the actual gameplay from point A to point B be more 2D. And that's worked for a lot of other games. All types of games have it where like it's either 2D or like a top-down isometric view. But when you get to the story bits, that's more like the 3D animations and all that stuff with that. But when you get back to the gameplay, it turns back to your whatever you were playing before.
Yeah,
So I think it can be. I think it can be done. What do you think about that?
I think that does sound good, but I think if you look at with Sonic Origins, they made animated cutscenes for the kind of beginning of Sonic One and
Yes, I heard
the
about that.
end of Sonic One. Now, I think
Hmm.
if they did it like you're saying, have the gameplay 2D, but then have the cutscenes as an animated cutscene of a kind of 90s cartoon, sort of like what I was used to,
Hmm.
and explain the story that way, I think that'd be a lot better than a 3D thing. But yeah, I think
Okay.
it could work. It would just need to be really kind of thought about and really implemented well.
Yeah. Well, of course, you would want to have it be thought about. I mean, I'm not. I would never suggest them to just do it just because. But I was thinking of like because they want to do this 3D thing so badly, right? Because they've had so many of these titles 3D. Well, why not just meet people in the middle? Because it seems to be when it comes to the gameplay, Sonic, Sega, or whoever hits it out, or Sonic Team, I think is the developers. Like they hit it out of the park whenever they go 2D or have that more 2D reminiscent style for gameplay wise. And I don't think people would mind if the cutscenes were 3D or in your suggestion with the more animated cartoon setting, which I remember, yeah, that was added in. Um, I think they might have done it with Mania. I don't, probably not, but yeah. And I'm not saying do it after every stage because like especially for people who know what they're doing, like it's only going to take you like a minute or two to get to one through one stage, and like you wouldn't want that many cutscenes because that breaks up the action too much, right? So I'm thinking like maybe between each new world. So after you do the 2 or 3 stages in the first world, then you get the cutscene that kind of transitions you from that world to the next world. Like what is leading you to the next world? Like what did Robotnik do or whatever to to get you there. You know what I mean? Like provide a reason, you know, because I'm not saying we need it, because obviously we didn't in the 90s. It was just like, oh, Green Hill Zone, oh, chemical plant zone. Okay. You know, we just went. We didn't care. But like, you know, it doesn't mean that it wouldn't hurt to have it. You know, like how does he get from Green Hill Zone to chemical plant zone to the casino zone? You know, like it'd be kind of cool to like kind of show it. It doesn't have to make sense. It's Sonic.
Yeah,
From the very beginning, doesn't make sense.
don't try and kind of humanize Sonic. I think,
Yeah,
as we said, that was '06's problem. They tried to go on the whole thing of, oh my god, we're in the millennium. Let's go all edgy and let's humanize Sonic and give him a love interest. He's got a freaking love interest in Amy. Like, just let him have her.
ugh, Amy, ugh, ugh. She just makes me just ugh, fucking Amy. Anyways, yeah, sorry. But yeah, so I don't know. I feel like that's maybe where they could go. But yeah, this I'm not saying the Sonic Frontiers is going to be, you know, like garbage or anything, but it's just like the hype that they're doing with this is the exact same amount of hype that they did with Forces.
Oh,
And we remember how that went.
Sonic forces you to play Mania. That's the meme.
Sonic Forces was honestly, I think, this Sega tapping into the fucking like furry community that they have with that game, or with that franchise. Because I mean, people, or critics at least, were not happy with the game. But I know fans, when you were able to create your own character, I know most fans lost their shit. Like most Sega, like Sonic fans, probably lost it. That's probably what they've always wanted to do, right? Even though you pretty much have like no like implication on really most of what happens, you're just kind of there and you help. You can't talk or anything, but like just to be there, I can imagine for a lot of people was like a dream come true. But it doesn't mean the game was particularly good. I mean, it was no Sonic Boom, but it wasn't like for the hype that they gave for it. Because I remember being kind of like optimistic because they were like, you know, made by the same team that did Colors and Generations, you know, the only two good 3D games that we ever did, you know. So I was like, okay, hey, if it's from those guys and they're the only ones to do the good 3D games, then hey, maybe we have hope. But then it dropped and it got like 4s and 5s across the board, and I was like, oh well, okay. So I don't know. What I also think, in my opinion, this is my opinion, is that I think the more Sonic Frontiers stays away from its like extended cast, the better, in my opinion. Because I know for the mega fans, they have their favorites. Some people love the fucking alligator, crocodile, whatever. Some of them love Big the Cat, although I don't think anybody actually does. You know, people might like Silver, they might like the bunny or whatever. I don't even know half the fucking names. But like, I feel part of Sonic's problem is that the cast holds it back. Because the cast, in my opinion, is a bit insufferable, honestly. Especially Amy and Big the Cat, in my opinion, because their characters have never changed. They're just what they are, you know. And I think I think having them or forcing them in all these games kind of dilutes or can dilute what they're trying to do with the main game of Sonic or whatever the narrative they're trying to do. I just feel like it just dilutes it a bit too much. And I think, because I know we've already seen Tails, I know we've already seen Amy in the game because she was captured or whatever in a cinematic they showed off recently. But I feel like the least that they're integrally involved, the better. That's just my opinion. I think if you kept it Sonic, Tails, maybe Shadow, Knuckles, whatever, I think those four are fine. But anybody else, I feel like will cause more problems than solve. I don't know. How do you feel?
I feel like I definitely agree with that, because if you look at say like Mario, he's obviously got a rival in Wario and Luigi and Waluigi, and then you've got Bowser. But they kind of, when they're in a game with Mario, they don't show up until like late game sort of thing. And like you say, they don't overstay their welcome. You kind of know what they're about, but they don't stay their welcome. And it's like, okay, done really well, and that's why Mario is probably the better kind of seller than Sonic is, because he is better in terms of the way the characters are portrayed and how they're put across. And like you say, I think it is a case that Sonic characters have got to kind of learn to kind of be in their own world, but make it all about Sonic rather than the characters around him.
Yeah, and I and it was just funny because like it's just for like certain characters, it's like why do they exist? And then for some other characters, it's like for instance, Amy, she only exists because Sonic exists. You know what I mean?
Mm,
Like they've never really given her any character direction beyond the fact that Sonic. You know,
yeah,
if
she's
Sonic wasn't
obsessed.
there, yeah, if Sonic wasn't there, Amy wouldn't be there anywhere. Like if Sonic was all of a sudden just gone, what is Amy's purpose, right? To live in that universe. What is it? You know, they would have to start from scratch because they have nothing to go off of. You know, like and like Big the Cat, like I know why I'm picking on him, but he's just the worst. He's just
Froggy.
absolutely the worst. Yeah, him and his frog, they can just get out of here. But it's just like why? Like if they were gone, what would really be missing? You know what I mean?
Oh,
Like if you, it's one of those kind of questions that you have to ask yourself. Like if you took like some of these characters that are in the game, it's like if they were just all of a sudden just gone, what would really be missing? Would anything really change except for like a few diehard fans that just love that crocodile or the bunny or whatever? Like, but do you really? But do you really though? And so it's just yeah. I mean, I no. Granted, a lot of those miscellaneous ones don't really show up in most of the games. Like haven't really seen the crocodile I think there's a falcon or something or some kind of bird. Like I haven't really seen them in most games, which is to their credit. But still, it's like what? But like some of them do, and I'm like, why are you here? Or so it's like on it, Rouge the Bat. What does she do? What does she do? I know she's like pals with Shadow, but like why? How?
let's be fair, sex sells, and she's like the kind of candy, if you can call it that, from a Sonic game. But she's like the seductress of like, okay, this is what we're selling now.
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, I get that, obviously. I mean, I got that for sure. And again, is you have to ask yourself, like, well, why that then? Because that juxtaposes from what Sonic is really trying to. I mean, that might have worked in the 90s when things were edgier, but like not now. Like, it doesn't really matter now. So it's just like, if she was gone, would that matter? So that's kind of what I mean. Like when I explain my point about like keeping a lot of the other characters away from this game as much as possible. Because they just don't really have any stake or meaning in the greater conflict or universe of Sonic. So, yeah, I mean, again, for you, MrTibbz, and for everybody else, I hope that it does well. I hope this can be a solid game. For you guys, it's a fun game. I hope the open world can actually bring some new life into 3D Sonic. I don't know how you do it because Sonic's all about going fast, and so like you want to make sure there's not any obstacles in your way if you're trying to go fast. Like it'd be kind of cool they use that like his speed to do like a fast travel thing, which I don't know how you miss that. Like he can go fast. How do you not have that incorporated to like some kind of fast travel mechanic? You know what I mean? But yeah,
It's all up in the air until I think it's November the 8th.
Is it
or
November the 8th, right?
Yeah, I think something like that. So
is that going to be on your channel? Are you going to be playing that day one on your channel?
Let's not. Well, I want to play it for the channel, but I think I will kind of do it as a 2023 kind of playthrough sort of thing. Probably after we get Christmas out of the way and get all the family stuff out of the way, then it'll be maybe going onto my channel then.
Makes sense. But you'll be playing it though,
right? I will be playing it. Okay.
All right, cool. I hope it does well, man. I really do. Because it just Sonic is just been beaten to the ground so much, dude. Ugh, there's no more. Stop it. Like how much more of a beating can Sonic take? It's just ugh. Oh my gosh, dude. It's just brutal. But yeah, so let's hope it does well. If it doesn't, Sonic, hey, or Sega team, hey, no, Sonic team. There we go. I keep mixing the two up. Go 2D. Make a whole new original 2D. Do what you did with Sonic CD, because that game apparently did really well, or at least critically. But just go that route. Make a whole new thing. Make it 2D for the new systems. Sprinkle in some little animated cutscenes in between the worlds. I think you would have a banger on your hands. You heard it here first. You heard it here first from me and Mr. Tibbz. If it does happen.
We are taking like 20% of that.
Yeah, I will take my cut, please. I will expect a check in the mail. But yeah, so I wanted to transition. So the other big series that our boy Tibbz here is all about is the Resident Evil. Big Resident Evil fan. He's played a few. I've seen him play a few before. He's a big fan, long time fan, along with Gemini. Actually, they probably bonded over some good old Resident Evil, I imagine.
You know what? Speaking about that, our channel is, well, our friendship was basically built on me commenting on Gemini's playthrough of Resident Evil 4, because he was playing it at the same time that I was, but I was playing it on professional and uploading it, and then I was searching through the videos, and then it come up, recommended for you an episode on of Gemini's one, and in the video he was like, like, what determines the fact of getting the headshots and like the ammo drops and stuff like that? And all I commented was, the game has adaptive difficulty. It's gonna, the better you do, the less ammo drops and the less headshots you're gonna get. And that was it. And then 2 years later, we are like thick as thieves now.
Oh man, yeah. Sometimes I've heard that kind of story before. You know, just one little comment, one little whatever, you know, and then bam, boom, you know, you got something. Yeah, so they're both big time. I mean, for those who did watch the podcast with Gemini, yeah, he's a big old fan, but so is Mr. Tibbz. So I thought we would talk a little bit about the franchise. Again, this is the franchise that I am not particularly, you know, a huge fan of. I'm not a big fan of horror in general. Never have. But I did play the Resident 2 remake with Travis. We played that on our channel too. We played that for a couple of Halloweens ago. Ooh. And boy, were we scared. It's a shame too. Well, actually, I like to credit Resident Evil. It's funny. I credit that playthrough personally because I feel that was kind of when our channel kind of made a turn for the better. As far as like, we kind of like got a formula really nailed down between Travis and I. As far as like our commentary, our humor, and things were going, you know, just on the channel. And we already had good humor and commentary, or just talking to each other in real life. But like on the channel, you know, I think we finally hit a stride during that particular playthrough, and we've been carrying that on ever since. But it's a shame because it was one part of the playthrough that no one ever got to get because the files were corrupted.
Oh no, man!
I forget if we were starting. I think we were starting an episode. Yeah, we were starting an episode. Oh no, you got to see it, but you didn't get the correct audio. That's what it was. So we were starting an episode, doing an intro, you know, talking, saying what we were doing before and all that shit and everything, right? And I had the game unpaused, right? And we had gotten through the part where we met Mr. X.
Oh.
Okay. So obviously we know he's running around, you know, trying to find us. But in the intro, we both forgot, right? And the way we play games is, this is two of us. We can't just, you know, be by ourselves, plug in our headphones, whatever, because it's two of us, right? So we have to play on a couch, have the TV in front of us. We have to keep it a little low so that we don't get too much reverb from the mic or anything, right? It doesn't pick it up. So the TV's not loud, just loud enough for us to hear most things. But what we didn't hear was Mr. X's footsteps. So we didn't know he was coming. He had found us, and we had forgotten that he was around. So we're doing an intro, talking, and yada yada, and then just out of camera, just wham, just right on us, and we got so scared. We were screaming. We were like, just instantly pause the game, catching our breath. Like,
you know what? There are moments like that where I wish that you could have had the audio for that, because that would have been what a highlight.
I do too. Yeah, I know. The audio was corrupted. The video file was fine, but the audio got corrupted. So the best we could do was just watch it and redub over it. And just kind of just like do like a live, like kind of reaction type
Yeah,
of
like
style to those
post
episodes as they were
commentary sort of
happening.
thing.
Yeah. So that was the best we could do because I didn't want to lose it because it was still funny to watch us get murked right off the screen. But yeah, it was a shame though. Such a damn shame because, dude, we were bro. My heart stopped, bro. My heart fucking stopped when that
You know what?
happened.
The Resident Evil 2 remake always has a special place for me as well because I love the original. Even to this day, I can genuinely say that the original still gets me in places. But when the remake was announced that it was coming out, I was working in a supermarket at the time, customer service, and I booked the day off. Me and my friend, we digitally downloaded it at midnight, and we did a full all-nighter playing through Leon and Claire, and we were sitting there, and then Mr. X comes in, and I'm like, "Oh, that's right, you can down him, and he'll leave you alone." Oh, how wrong we were!
I mean, you can down him, but it takes some firepower to take him down.
And he don't stay down for
He
as
doesn't
long
just
as what he did in the original.
Oh yeah, he only stays down as long enough for you just to get out of the way. Like that's about it. No, there were some parts of the game where we would just go. We needed to go out this door, but he was right fucking there, and we were too scared to do anything. But yeah, no, that remake was phenomenal. I still own it. Actually, I bought it with the intent to trade it back in or whatever, but I kept it. Because yeah, no, I appreciate. I mean, as a non-horror fan, as a non-Resident Evil fan, right? I was still able to appreciate that game for everything that it was that it did. Absolutely, I mean, I already knew of the legacy of Resident Evil 2. But yeah, just playing this, it was just like, holy crap! Like, yeah, the amount of care and attention that went into this is just unreal. It's weird that Resident Evil 3 didn't get the same love when they didn't do anything different with that they did with the OG ones, because I've watched the videos that there was only a year in between 2 and 3 as far as like release dates are concerned, I believe. I don't like 3 didn't come out very very long after 2 because it wasn't supposed to, right? It was 3 supposed to take place concurrently to 2, and so it made sense for that to happen, right? And they did the same with the 3 remake, but the 3 remake didn't get the same love that the 2 remake did, and I'm like, what's wrong? Like, I don't get what the problem. What was the problem with the 3 remake?
Canonically, this is a little bit of Resident Evil trivia for you guys. So Resident Evil 3 takes place 24 hours before the events of Resident Evil 2 and 24 hours after the events of Resident Evil 2. But Resident Evil 3 with Jill was not meant to be Resident Evil 3. Resident Evil Code Veronica with Claire was meant to be Resident Evil 3. But because of time constraints with like getting it onto the Dreamcast and doing all different bits and pieces, they wanted to put a Resident Evil game out for the fans because fans were like, "Oh my god, this game is amazing! Like, give us more." So they were just like, "Right, what we'll do? We'll reuse the assets from Raccoon City. We'll put Jill back into the driving seat, and we'll give her a pursuer enemy as well." And then they were like, "Well, we can't really call it Resident Evil 3." And they were like, "Well, why not?" So that's the whole thing of it. It was a spin-off that became a main title, and Code Veronica became the spin-off.
But correct me if I'm wrong, Resident Evil 3, the original one at least, that one still got reviewed pretty well, right? Like,
yeah, they were 11 months apart. They weren't even a year apart, and they got absolutely same sort of reviews as Resident Evil 2. Like, it was very much like, "Oh my god, this is amazing. This is like, you've amped it up brilliantly." And then come the remakes where they just cut pretty much everything out of it.
Really? Okay. So I'm trying to think
everything that made the OG Resident Evil 3 amazing, in the remake, they cut it out. Like the clock tower
Mm-hmm.
was made into a battlefield
Hmm.
into Resident Evil 3. There were certain puzzles that they cut out and stuff like that. And it was just like, it does make me nervous for the Resident Evil 4 remake because it's like, oh my
Oh.
god, what are they going to do with it?
Okay, I didn't know about all that other stuff because I was just confused why it didn't get reviewed that well, right? Because I was like, it looks just as great, it probably plays just as great. So like, what was the problem? But it seems to be that's probably the problem, that some stuff was taken out, whereas like two felt like a pretty close representation to the original game. Three
Hmm.
three felt a little bit lacking in that regard.
If
Um,
if
okay.
you if you play the OG Resident Evil 3 and then go straight onto the remake of
Mhm,
Resident Evil 3,
mhm.
you'll be like, oh my god, they've cut so much.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's like that's what our problem was. It was like, how can you make a masterpiece
Yeah.
of Resident Evil 2 remake and stick so close to the source material and not do the same?
Well, that's probably because just like with the release dates of the OG 2 and 3, the release dates of the remakes were only like a year apart from each other.
Mm,
Maybe not even, like they might have been 11 months or something like that. Because I know 2 came out in 2019, and then 3 came out like maybe a year later. Maybe it might even been less than a year, but that's probably why, because they were trying to maybe just do the exact same thing with the OG titles. But like you didn't need to do that. You could have waited like another 6 months or another year to put everything back into it. I don't know, but but it's interesting. I'm glad you told me that, because now I better understand why. As far as the 4 remake, I mean, I know people initially were just like, take my kids, I don't care, like just give me this game. No, but yeah, you're not the first person I've heard people be now a little bit more hesitant with this now. Um, I'm only hesitant because it's now being confirmed it's on PS4 as well, which means that, because I don't think it'll be a exclusive forever if it is one, which I don't even know if it is, but and I know it'll come to Xbox as well eventually. But that what worries me. And I'm not trying to be a hater on those who don't have a PS5 yet, because I mean I do have one, but I'm not trying to be a hater. But it's just like we don't have enough of these big budget titles that are only for the new systems, you
mm.
know. And when are we eventually going to get, like when are we going to make the transition? We have to make it eventually. We have to eventually, and I just feel like it just undermines the potential of these games. And so, like, because I mean, unless you have two completely dedicated teams to work on both of the consoles pretty much like independently, it's gonna suffer a bit, because because your resources are going to be constrained to try to make a system for both, or console for both systems. So like you're going to make an engine or whatever, make assets that are good enough to take advantage of the PS5, but not too crazy to where it's going to melt your PS4. You know,
And I think the best example of that is Cyberpunk 2077.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that was me and David talked about that all the time. Like when that was still like the hot topic at the
Mm,
time, we talked about that constantly. I mean, before it even dropped, we were just like, this game should have never have released on the PS4, the older Xbox Series games or systems or whatever. It should have never been out for them. We understood why, because the console base, the base players is much greater for those systems, because the PS5 and the Xbox Series X were so hard to get. But it doesn't take away the fact that just like it just if it was just a next gen only title, it probably would have done better. At least, sorry, it would have performed better. Like
it definitely would have performed better.
technically, it would have. Yeah,
Although we have got a massive resurgence coming back onto that because of the series that was put onto
yeah. Of
Netflix
course, the
and
anime is provide life to it. We'll see how long it lasts. Because like I mean, they have updated the game since, but I don't know if we ever got that massive next gen update yet, though. That was supposed to be like the no, no, we did get a next gen native version of it. I take that back, we did. Um, so maybe now it's a better game. At least it plays. It doesn't crash, but
the
still,
bugs
it's
ain't too bad, I've heard.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, if that's the case, it runs better, it's more optimized, then great. But like, it's still. it doesn't take away the fact of what happened, you know. And so, and yeah, it's just, I mean, some games have done well with it, you know, Horizon Forbidden West. We'll see how the new God of War does, because that's going to be on both. Um, those come to mind particularly, and we've had a lot of other examples as well. But
That's
it's just
going on
like,
my channel. Old
yeah,
Ragnarok.
but it's just like, when, you know, we got to make it eventually. And I know it's only been going on this long because of, you know, COVID has been stagnating supply and making things a lot harder to find and or make for good prices and stuff. I get it, but eventually we have to make this transition, because like I've been hearing now reports that Sony's were talking about a new like a new console for like the midlife cycle,
Yeah,
like a
they're
new
doing a
variation of it.
PS5 Pro.
And I'm like, bro, we can't even get the PS5 basic. What are you doing wasting your time getting this Pro out the door when no one can get the basic model still? And it's been out for now almost 3 years. And
Yeah,
you're pushing
it's
well,
crazy.
2 years. But still, it's like, why? I don't get it. Like, stop it. Cut it out. You know? So it's just ridiculous, man. So, but I still wonder though. We gotta make it eventually. So that's the reason why I'm a little worried about Resident Evil 4 remake. It's just because I don't feel like it's gonna be able to live up to its full potential, because it has to cater to both the last gen and the next gen. But what are you particularly worried about?
I think for me, it's going to be the kind of story beats and stuff like that. And in terms of like with the Resident Evil 2 remake, its DLC was amazing, like the costumes and like what
Mm-hmm.
you got and stuff like that.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want the mercenaries or separate ways, or if they are going to do that, locked behind a paywall. Because in the
Good point.
original they weren't. It was a case of
Yeah,
you
they were
completed the game,
unlockable.
yeah, and you got them. If they're going to do different weapons behind a paywall, then that's fair enough. But don't give us modes behind a paywall like they did for Village. They locked mercenaries behind a paywall, and it was
Are you,
like,
are you sure?
yeah, I'm sure they did. I think it was,
I know they now releasing these new characters for Mercenaries, but
yeah,
I don't think
which
Mercenaries was locked behind. Let me double check that for you.
I'm going to say, double check that, but I'm sure it was like, it might have been a free update, but I'm sure it was that you, or it might have been a free download. Let me put it that way. I think you had to download it still.
Let's find out. Where is it? Because I thought that was unlocked when you beat the game. So let me find out here. Oh gosh, this is not as good on my phone. Oh goodness gracious. Okay. New site, different site. That was not good. Let's find out. We're doing research. This is how we do research at the CHG labs.
I'm going to say this is premium CHG behind the scenes.
Oh yeah, right here. This is how we do our this is how we do all our research, man. That's how we do it here. Okay, let's see here. Okay, that's not a. Okay, let's see here. I'm looking up a trophy guide because they usually there's probably trophies for it, so it'll probably tell me.
Yeah, I think it might have been an extra download that you had to download, but I don't know. I couldn't remember off this.
There we go. No, it's available in the game. It's built into the game.
Well, there you go.
Yeah, you have to beat the game.
Oh, colour me wrong then. Yeah, I did fully complete Village. I'd done like all the difficulties included.
Well, you should check. Then you should go to the extra content shop, and you'll find Mercenaries mode in there.
That's what it was. I knew it was something like that. I have got Mercenaries on there, but I couldn't remember how I got it on there.
I mean, I don't blame you for being mistaken. I mean, every game has DLC of some kind, so I mean, I don't blame you. You know,
Yeah. So that's my fear, is that I don't want any of the extra modes kind of locked behind a DLC paywall.
Okay. Well, go ahead. Sorry.
If it's in like in Village, where it's in like the in-game shop that you unlock afterwards, that you can then unlock it through doing challenges, then that's fair enough, because that's like, I don't know, that's like a way of player interactivity, and I kind of get that, but I don't want to have to fork out like $4 to play Mercenaries or $4 to play Ada's campaign and stuff like that.
Well, given how they didn't have anything egregious with their DLCs on their 2 and 3 remake, and given that they gave you the extra mode, the regular way in 8, I I would be I wouldn't be surprised. I mean, I wouldn't be worried personally. I would be very surprised if they actually did that. Like that's nuts, right? Especially Ada's campaign, which is that's just an unlockable campaign. At
Mm.
least for if they actually were like, you better give me $5 first. It's like okay, all right, Capcom, come here.
we're going to have a talk in private. This is not good.
Come here. I'm gonna have to introduce you to my fist real quick. Come here. Yeah. So I mean, I hear your reservation. I wouldn't be as worried though, just based on what they've done with the remakes and 8, and even 7. I mean, only DLC they had for 7 was like story stuff, right? That just continued to tell the story either afterwards or before the main game, which that's fine. Most people don't have a problem with that. And so, yeah, we'll see how it goes. I have high hopes for it. I just don't think it's going to be like it's not going to be able to take advantage of the hardware as much as it could have. That's my only thing. That's my only like when you saw with 2 and 3, you were like, oh my gosh, like this is just dripping, with just flair. Everything is just meticulous as hell. Like you're like when you were think of a next gen Leon and Claire, and then Jill and Carlos, you were like, this is what I was thinking.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And that's my same thought when I'm like, okay, let's take that Leon. Now, what would I think of when I think of a PS5 Xbox Series X Leon? And the model we have is fine, but I just think it could have been better, in my opinion. And
well, from what I've heard about the Resident Evil 4 remake, and this is obviously going with a grain of salt. Apparently,
there's speculation here. We're just speculating.
Well, apparently, from what I've heard through leaks and stuff like that, he is going to have PTSD sort of flashbacks in Resident Evil 4 remake to what happened in Raccoon City. Now that is amazing, because I feel like even though he's been trained as a government agent and stuff like that, in the OG Resident Evil 4, the only time they mention it is a one-off kind of cutscene. And I feel like he would have more trauma than that from what...
As a rookie cop. He did this... He wasn't even a day into the job in 2. And this is what he has to deal with.
Yeah,
He should. Absolutely, he should.
So if that is correct, that's going to be absolutely amazing. Apparently there's going to be full day and night cycles in the game as well.
Okay.
And Dr. Salvador, Mr. Chainsaw Guy himself, is going to be a nemesis / Mr. X pursuer.
Okay.
That you can down him, but he will get back up and chase you throughout the village. Apparently each section is going to have a pursuer type enemy to chase you through.
Okay. I mean, even if there's... Yeah, that makes it... That could actually work really well, and that would actually be like doubly terrifying because of the chainsaw. Like especially if they have it to where like you hear the chainsaw first.
Yes.
Just like somewhere in the background, you're just like, oh no. You're just like, I gotta get out of here. Like that would terrify Travis and I if we were ever to play that, which we probably won't. But like,
that is day one. Oh. Me and Gemini have already said.
He's told me.
Both me and Gemini are doing a day one blind let's play off that for our channel.
I mean, how blind is it really when you play Resident Evil 4 front to back? You know what I mean? Like, it's only going to be so blind for you because some things will be new, but most of it you're going to know what's going on. You're going to know what to do.
I think. Well, if you go from the OG 2 to Remake 2, there are really big differences in that. I mean, I can do the OG Resident Evil 2, both campaigns in like an hour and 30,
Yeah.
like speed running.
Mhm.
But Resident Evil 2 Remake, it still takes me like 4 or 5 hours. And I've put hours upon hours into that game, and it's like, so for me, there is definitely kind of, I'm definitely excited to get into Resident Evil 4 Remake and see what's new and what they change. And yeah,
Oh, I'm sure you'll still have a good time. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say you won't have a good time. I'm just being a bit of a smart ass is all. So don't
people,
mind me.
well, I am going to try and do the hardest difficulty as well as my blind Let's
Oh,
Play as well. Whatever difficulty they
okay.
offer, that is going to be the hardest. That's going to be me.
Oh, sounds like Shut Your Gob is rubbing off on you a bit.
Gemini,
uh,
you can stay on your assisted mode. I'm going all in.
ooh, shots fired, Gemini. I know he's gonna watch this. Oh, shots fired to him. Whatever. He's gonna have fun any way he wants. Okay, you leave him alone. Uh, anywho, yeah. So, um, but I do like that PTSD thing. I really hope that that comes in because, like, I mean, the obvious reason is because continuity, right? It humanizes your characters in a really great way, while also it just creates more agency within the characters themselves. Like, I am a sucker for that when like games acknowledge other things in other games that happened, right? Especially if it's a long franchise, right? To bring things up, um, it just because it makes sense. It's like, okay, because it creates things. It creates a more connected universe or whatever world that you're in to let you remind you like that stuff wasn't just a one-off thing like by itself and it didn't affect nothing else. Like, no, it has consequences that are still felt even years later because that's what's supposed to happen in real life. That's what happens. Um, like COVID is going to be something that's going to affect the world for years to come, and whatever kind of way that is. And so like you can't just look at that in a box and be like, oh nope, that was that from 2020 to 2023. That was it, and it was done.
No,
That's not how that
no.
works. That ain't how that works, buddy. I'm sorry. So it's just like I just love that when games do that, right? And so, but it juxtaposes with the fact of because as MrTibbz knows, and as most of you are going to find out soon, Gemini and I did a very, very long and arduous collab on Resident Evil 6 together. And one of the issues of many, might I add, that I have is just that, first of all, the characters are ridiculous. No one is a real person in this fucking game. And two, it's like the events don't like connect to each other. Like the way they try to connect the campaigns to each other is the most haphazard bullshit, laziest thing I've ever seen. And they're not even all connected. And so it's like these things can't be happening all like irrelevant of each other. They're supposed to be happening like this one virus is affecting the world, but yet all these other things are happening as if they don't affect anything else. And it's just that just blows my mind because not how that works. And so just be prepared to hear me say that's not how that works many times in this series because I say that like Gemini even had a couple times tell me like RJ, you have to stop breaking this down. And I was like,
Seriously,
I can't stop.
my lovely wife, as much as I,
Miss Mrs. Tibbs, as we refer to
yeah,
her.
Mrs. Tibbs. So I've got, I don't know, yeah, because Gemini showed you that PS1 thing that I bought him. I've got the same with the original Tomb Raiders on it. So I don't know whether you remember Lara Croft back in the 90s with how she looked.
I never played the OG Tomb Raiders.
Well, she is like really blocky as hell, and
Oh, I know that. I've seen her.
yeah.
Yes.
So the first time Mrs. Tibbs sees her, she's like, "How is she running around with triangle tits?" And
Because
it's
PS1, because PS1, that's why.
and it's like, don't try and introduce real. She says it all the time. Like if I'm playing like Abe's Odyssey or anything like that, she always tries to introduce real world logic into the games and be like, that wouldn't work. And it's like, please don't try and introduce real world logic while I'm playing my game and spoiling it for me.
Well, here's the thing, and I hear you, right? I get it, especially for like something like Abe's Odyssey. You know, I absolutely get it. You know what I mean? Because it's Abe's Odyssey. Like he's an alien by default. You know what I mean? Like he looks like a small intestine. You know what I mean? Like so, like why? It's like yeah, why would you even bother bringing in realism to this, right? But the thing with Resident Evil is that yes, it does involve zombies and viruses that somehow
Oh,
can
she'll be like,
spread
oh my god,
like
their legs
wildfire.
must be chafing so much, like wearing all that leather.
Like I understand like that part of it is absolutely ridiculous and shouldn't be like critiqued, which I don't critique that part. But when it comes to the characters you play as who are absolutely 100% supposed to be just regular humans, I will call shit out because it's supposed to, like, because it makes sense to call it out in those moments, right? It's like you are just a regular dude, all right, or a regular woman. You cannot jump the way I am watching you jump right now. That don't fucking work. And so it's and like also some of the falls that they take, you be dead. You
Oh,
just you splat and die.
and
So it's just
some of the blowback from the explosions and stuff like that.
yeah, you should be. There's one finale and one of the campaigns, but I won't say. Well, I will say the campaign. It's Jake's. But at the end of it, though,
yes, I know
something.
exactly what you're
Oh,
going
you
to.
know?
I
Oh, you've
know.
already played it. Oh, you played it. Okay.
I played it day
Okay.
one. I honestly, it come up on my
Okay.
Facebook memories today, because it's been 10 years since Resident Evil 6 has come out.
Did it come out today?
Yeah,
Really?
10 years
10 years ago?
10 years ago today, and me being the
Oh.
naive boy that I was, my status was a picture of Resident Evil 6 for the I think it was Xbox 360 back then, saying, "Oh my god, can't wait to play this." What an idiot I was! That was another day one purchase that I do regret.
It's just. But anyways, so basically, the thing is, at the end of the campaign, I'm not gonna say too much, but at the end of the campaign, something to do with fire happens at the very end. And even Gemini he commented, he was like, "Bro, they would have been burned by now." And I was like, "You're right. Like that fire would have burned the shit out of them already by now. It is so close to them. They would have like the fire would have got them by then, like easy, like and burned them alive. But nope, not Resident Evil 6. It doesn't happen.
No,
But yeah, we're not going to get too deep because there's two parts in the collab where Gemini and I actually take down like a really long. We basically have an impromptu podcast within the collab, but like we basically break down Resident Evil 6, right, and like what we think they should have done. And the consensus we both came to multiple times is that they just should have, if they were to ever do what they're doing with the older Resident Evil games, right, they would like. Instead of just remaking it or whatever, remaster, remake, whatever, they would have to absolutely redo 6. Like, to the point where you almost don't even recognize it as the same game. Like, it completely redo it from scratch. And Gemini and I, we would do it for free. Capcom, call us up. We'll do it fucking for free. Like,
hey,
give us a shot.
I would be your advisors. I'll be like, right,
and we'll bring
this
you,
is
we'll
what
bring
you
you
do.
on. We'll bring you on as the tester / advisor. Okay, like we'll do it for free. Like apparently because Capcom can't figure it out, so let us do it. Like we got nothing to lose. You have nothing to lose. You can't do any worse than what you already made. But it's just because we would first of all, like my personal opinion was like take out the 4 campaigns, just one, have one campaign, but have it be on Jake because Jake. You know, for I guess spoilers, is a 10-year-old fucking game that really sucks. But I guess spoilers alert. But for those who don't know, Jake is supposed to be Wesker's son, and Wesker is the longtime baddie of the Resident Evil series, who supposedly died in 5. Uh, also spoilers.
Bollocks.
For an older game.
He's still going.
But anyways, he's supposed to be the son, right? He's Wesker's son. He has the antibodies, whatever, to cure the C virus in the game. That's actually a pretty good beginning premise, in my opinion. That's pretty good. You know, this dude is the cure. Right? So we need to get this guy. But I think the game should be about him, especially since he's so new. Just him, right? He can still mess around with all the other characters, mess around with Leon, Sherry, all of them, whatever, right? But but if you make it a more centered, focused campaign on him, and then him kind of growing as a character, because he never really stops being a fucking prick throughout the campaign. He's pretty much a prick till the very end. But giving him more time to bake in that oven for his story allows him, he can be a bitch in the beginning, be a hella dick, but then eventually slowly start coming, kind of like Joel in Last of Us, right? He wasn't a nice guy in the beginning of the game, but eventually with time, his heart finally softens, his guard finally comes down, but you see it gradually happen. It wasn't just like, I hate you, Ellie, and at the end he's like, oh baby girl, come here. Like, it was like we gotta work to this, so it's that you can't have him be a dick to Sherry and at the end of the game they're fucking holding hands and shit or whatever. Like, no, you don't do that. You didn't deserve that. You didn't earn that kind of development for him. So that would be my thing, right? Completely redo it, make it about Jake. But have him like maybe start with Sherry. You can even have a romance with Sherry, but just bake it longer, right? And then you could have him kind of his conflict coming into the situation of how he helps Chris and Pierce, or as Gemini, we go Pierce. I don't know why, but we like saying his name. We just go Pierce. He can maybe help them at some points, and then he runs into Leon and Helena, and then Ada wouldn't be in the campaign at all. Ada would. If she is, very minimally, because she pretty much had her thing was so thrown in to Resident Evil 6, you could do without it.
It was just like extra seasoning on top of it. It
really was. That was all it was. It didn't need to be there. Get it out of there. You can play with her in the mercenaries mode. Okay, there you go. But yeah, just that, and then how it intertwines into solving the situation, and eventually everyone comes together to realize he is the cure to the world, right? So they're all trying to help him, and then he can maybe be like, oh, I don't want your help at first, but then eventually come around, and he's finally like, he understands. He can still be like a bit of an anti-hero. He doesn't have to be a fucking total like Leon or anything, but like just give him some development, right? And you can even have Goodness Knack or whatever the fuck his name was, you can have him still be the roaming, always present, baddie like Mr. X or whatever. That's fine. But yeah, and also they got to back the camera up for your view. That drove me insane.
Yes.
Why am I so close to this dude? I'm so close to him. Back up the camera a bit, please. And also stop setting the shoulder settings to the right like a maniac. Who does 2% of the world shoot like that? Like, I had to press L3 or R3, whatever, every time I started the game because it always autoed me to like having the shoulder on the right side. Or sorry, right side. When normally it's the left. I'm like, why would you? Who did this? Capcom, come here. So it's just
that's twice, Capcom.
that is twice now. Like, you do not learn your lesson. But yeah, so and I also decided no co-op. And my reasoning is because, and I use myself and Travis as an example. I purposely played Resident Evil 2 Remake with Travis on the channel because I don't like horror, right? And as most people who either watch horror or whatever, horror fans, things aren't as scary as soon as you have someone with you.
Yes, I totally agree.
And that applies to games. If you have someone by your side almost all the time, how scary can something really be? You know what I mean? Like, so if it's by yourself or predominantly by yourself, that is where you'll actually get the fear. Because everyone complained was like, Resident Evil 6 isn't scary. It's not. I was not scared one time in that game. It is not a scary game at all. And I am the biggest wuss on the planet for horror. Remember the movie Signs? I got terrified. Remember the movie Eight-Legged Freaks? That was supposed to be a comedy? Couldn't sleep for weeks. Okay, so like I am not good with horror in the slightest. But Resident Evil 6, I could play that any day. Because it's not horror. And it's supposed to be horror. Like Resident Evil, you guys were the granddaddies of horror. So like bring that back, but you got to get rid of the co-op. You have to, otherwise it can only ever be so scary. Um, and so they would have to do that too. Like take that out as well. You can still keep it third person. You don't have to go first or like 7 and 8, but like just you got to get rid of that co-op. You got to, in my opinion. It won't be as scary as you want it to be if you have someone by your side at all times. That's kind of like 5, kind of started going downhill because you have Shiva by your side all the time, and so you're like, how scary can this really be?
Yeah, but 5 wasn't meant to be co-op.
You said wasn't or was?
Wasn't meant to be.
Really?
It was literally meant to be kind of cut and paste from Resident Evil 4, but with like 100 enemies on the screen. Chris was going to have to fight not only the enemies, but sun exhaustion as well. So because of where he's in Africa, like his eyes would, apparently would get like really heavy and stuff like that, and he'd start seeing shit in the foreground, sort of thing.
Oh,
so
hallucinate a bit.
Yeah, so he'd hallucinate if you left him out in the sun too long. So a lot of the gameplay was going to be pretty much similar to 4, but in terms of you would have to have there was going to be a new healing item that was going to be a bottle of water that you would have to keep Chris hydrated and inside the buildings a lot of the time, so it would have that more claustrophobic feeling. And
that makes a lot of sense. That's actually almost genius. Yeah, it makes you have to be inside and deal with those tighter spaces. That's actually pretty damn genius.
But then obviously people were like, "Oh my god, you can't have a white man shooting up Africans," all the thing. So that's why they brought Chevron.
They did it in Far Cry 2.
So it was like, yeah, people were going on like, oh my god, Resident Evil 5 is going to be the biggest racist piece of crap ever. And it's like, really? Like, we've shot Nazis, we've shot fucking everything, and that's the thing
I get it. I mean, that's always going to be a little tricky to navigate. Which that makes more sense. But then again, then if that was the case, and I don't know when they got that feedback initially, Capcom and all of them over in Japan. But if they had gotten it early enough, then I don't know, maybe that would have been a good time to just introduce a new character, not as a co-op, but as a like Ethan. He's a brand new character you play just as him. You know what I mean? Like they could have maybe brought in a South African or something, right, to fight, or Shiva, but you just play as Shiva the whole time.
Have it as a different story, still set in Africa, still about the origin of Umbrella in terms of how they found the T virus and stuff like that. But just let Trevor go through that situation.
Let her or some other African character or something. I think that would have solved their problem. And I get it; it was really tough for them to try to deviate from introducing new characters, especially new playable characters, right? But fuck, you could do it. You can fuck Resident Evil, man. If the game is good, I don't think fans would really care. Like if the game was really, really good and your new character that you made was really engrossing and likable and all that stuff, I don't think a lot. I mean, fans would be a little like, oh, I wish Leon was here. I wish Chris was here. But like, at least we got someone cool. Like if they gave you guys someone cool to be, and the game was really good behind it. I mean, you'd be a little pissed at first, but I think it would go away because you'd be like, well, it's a good game still,
It's like when 7 did introduce Ethan, we were like, who the hell is this? But then we played it and we were like, oh my god, he's amazing! Like, and the game was amazing.
I don't think Ethan's great in 8, but in 7 he was fine. I'm not a fan of him in 8 at all, but in 7 he was totally likable. He was totally understandable, reasonable. Absolutely, right? He's someone you could get behind because his mission was just, I want my wife back. Who can't relate to that? You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, and even if you didn't like Ethan, it didn't matter because first of all, he's first person, so it doesn't really matter. You don't get to see him. And secondly, like you said, the game was great. So who cares? The game was amazing. I don't care if the game was amazing. Like I can forget who I am because I'm already in first person, so I don't really have that much agency anyways with the character or relationship with the character anyways. So yeah, who cares? And no one did care because they loved the game. no one who reviewed that game. Okay, when people talk about Resident Evil 7 and they talk about like all the greatness about it, no one says, "Oh yeah, and that Ethan guy was amazing." Like I don't know, no one really mentions.
No.
He's kind of just. I'm not saying people didn't like him. It's just like, but like no one really mentions that was like a highlight of the game. But it doesn't matter because the game was so great.
My
So yeah, yeah. Mhm.
my thing with Ethan is that I loved him in 7, but the twist that they pulled in 8 or in Village,
Oh yeah, yes.
I was just like, that felt like a kick in the balls to me, because it was like, of all the shit that I went through in 7, was like a big slap in the face when you reveal that.
Well, hopefully he's gone for good. So, because I cannot stand him in 8. I've seen that game played multiple times, like from start to finish. I cannot. I just want to kill him. I want to kill him. I want to be the one that kills him. Like I want him to die. Like I just cannot. I just can't stand him. He's insufferable to me, and that's just my opinion. I know a lot of people like him. I can't stand him. But anyways, I think so. To your point about 5 not being initially co-op, right? Which now hearing like it, I don't know if that's even remotely like true. What you said, like that is amazing. Like that sounds like what Resident Evil's supposed like should have been like continuing.
If you look up the development stuff of 5, that is one of the first things that was meant to happen. That they were meant to have Chris as a solo journey, meant to give him like a heat exhaustion kind of gameplay feature.
I see.
And
so
stuff.
Okay, because that kind of blows my, because when John and I talked about it, it kind of blows my thought out the water, because he didn't mention that to me, so I don't know if he even knew about that. But because I initially thought, because Resident Evil 5 came out in 2008, around that time, 2008ish, right? And my thought was, I thought they would co-op because of just where gaming was at the time in 08, right? Because 360 and PS3 were out. You know, military shooters were like that was the order of the day. You know, you got to have that online multiplayer, man. You know, that was like the big thing that most games thought that they needed to have. And I thought that Capcom was thinking that too with Resident Evil. So they thought, well, okay, we don't want online multiplayer, but we want to try to have some kind of multiplayer thing because that's like the big trend. So let's bring in this co-op character to play us. But what you're saying makes way more sense, and it seems to be they only did that just based off of some unfortunate circumstances with their main character and where he was in the world. So that makes way more sense. But I still think my idea holds up for Resident Evil 6 because they had no problems with white people killing Asians at all. Or Eastern Europeans at all. But so I don't think that would have been the problem there. I think they then we were thinking like, okay, we got to go with where the trends are. So we're going to just make this totally co-op and all that stuff. Because I honestly think if they had taken out the co-op for 6, I don't think you guys would have cared. I honestly don't think you would have cared. You would have been like, oh, great, awesome. Back to basics. Can be great. You know, good times.
And then they brought in Michael Bay as a director as well.
Oh, I know, right? Leon and Chris are going to finally meet. Yeah, that's what I always wanted, right? But then, no, they didn't do that. And it's just that game wants to. I talked about this multiple times. It was like, what's a gaming cliche you could think of in 2012? It's here. It's in this game.
It was. Like, they brought literally everything from like QTEs to, like I said, explosive set pieces to anything and everything that you can mention was put into Resident Evil 6 and was like, right, okay, that's a game.
Except horror.
Yep.
you know, the one thing that Resident Evil is known for. Like, they brought in romance before horror. That is telling you something's wrong here. When you focus on romance more than you focus on the horror, like,
and like you said, it weren't even like implemented properly with Jake and Sherry.
Oh gosh, it was so bad.
Like with Leon and Ada, that's always going to be a thing, and that's like always going to be their sort of thing of won't they, like what's going on there, like what's her goal. And
Which we need to get a co-op game. Okay, I will play a co-op game of Leon and Ada. That is a co-op game we need. That is one we absolutely need. I want that today.
definitely, I'd 100% totally agree. But the way that they did it with Sherry and Jake, it was just like, I mean, backpacking off your idea a little bit, because Birkin and Wesker were really good friends way back when, in their like scientist days. They could have them, Jake and Sherry, as like childhood friends sort of thing. That they then see
Wait, whoa. You just broke my mind here for a second. Wait, hold on. I heard you, but I didn't really hear you. But now I'm hearing. But like, so you're telling me in the lore of Resident Evil, Wesker and Sherry's dad or mom or whatever were actually colleagues, friends.
Yeah,
they
they both worked for Umbrella, and they were both scientists for Umbrella.
And they weren't just coworkers; they were actually friends.
They were best
like
friends. They were like the best friends. He's done. He's done.
How do you mess that up? How do you mess that up?
And like I said, backpacking off your idea a little bit of having Jake as a main character, you could have him as a childhood friend of Sherry. That then, when the shit with Raccoon City went down, obviously they went their separate ways and then met up again.
Or that's one way. Or just, them eventually finding out that they actually have a deeper connection with each other than they thought.
Yeah. And it's just...
Because Sherry lost her parents when she was like, 9, 10, out of however old she was in Resident Evil 2, she lost her parents at a really young age, right? And we don't even know we don't know about Jake and Wesker and whatever mom was around, if there was one. We don't know, right? So he's a bit of a mystery. But like, to know, for them to eventually discover that they actually have a deeper bond that goes beyond their year, like, than they thought. Dude, how do you... Capcom, again, come here for a third time. Come here.
First strike, you're out.
We got more talking to do. We got some more. It's just, how do you mess that? When you have that lore that was already established, how do you just ignore that? Okay, now I understand why those two were connected in the story. Okay, great. But not once is that mentioned in their campaign. Not once is that ever mentioned. And not in theirs or anybody's campaign. Never once is that mentioned. That Sherry's dad and Wesker were actually colleagues, in that... At least, okay, maybe if it was mentioned somewhere else, okay, great. But it was not mentioned in 6, which is what we're talking about, which is where they're actually cooperating in. Never is that mentioned. And like, again, look, if you had a longer 10-hour or whatever campaign, you have enough time to eventually get to that, where they could just discover that together. That could be a really good bonding moment between the two of them, to know that, like, oh, we're actually connected more than we thought we were, right? Mm-hmm. And which gives, I mean, it's a bit loose, but it gives them really something to kind of like give them an excuse to, like, oh, maybe we're kind of like just destined to be together or something, or just at least like be a part of each other's lives in some capacity, right? Because it's like, that's crazy. How do we come back to this 20-year, however many years later, and we're meeting, like we're connecting like this? You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy. Like, so they can work with that. There's those narrative beats that they can draw from, in that regard. And so it's just like, oh my gosh. And
yeah, because in 0, now we're going right back to 0.
Okay, yeah, we're going back to 0. Okay, back to 0.
So in 0, there's a cutscene of Birkin and Wesker talking, and Wesker basically says, look, I'm done with Umbrella. I'm going with this new company. I want you to come with me. And Birkin's like, no, I'm working on the G virus sort of thing for Umbrella. Yeah. And then Wesker's like, well, just be careful, because we know what we did with Marcus, which them two were the two that got the assassination team sent after Marcus. And then when Wesker went over to the other side, the company, as he calls it, that's when Umbrella was like, no, we want the G virus for ourselves. We're going after Birkin. Because he didn't have Wesker's protection anymore. So it, like you say, it is one of them things that they've got the law there and they just completely disregarded it in terms of Jake and Sherry. They could have done so much more with what they had.
Could you just imagine, like, I'm kind of seeing it played out in my head when you were just talking. Like, I can imagine, like, maybe they find some facility or whatever, Jake and Sherry, right? And like a nice looking cutscene plays out, and it shows them discovering these, like, I don't know, tapes or documents or something of Sherry, of Dr. Birkin and Wesker, you know, talking to each other. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, and they get proof that, like, oh yeah, they were buddies, you know, and like to the point where Wesker wanted Birkin to come with him to the, you know, to continue working together. You know, like it's all right. But yeah, like I can imagine them kind of reading that or seeing that together and just like, wow, like having a bit of a moment to each other because they both lost parents, they both have tragic pasts, and they can bond over that together. You know, and it's just that could be pretty powerful, like a pretty good motive for both of them to be doing what they're doing beyond just like you're the cure or whatever, right? Because Jake does know that his dad was Wesker. He knows that, I believe, in the game. So, but he doesn't really know his dad. He just knows of his dad because there's a amazing scene in the game which I narrated over twice, where Jake and Chris finally come face to face after Jake knows about his dad and then knows that Chris killed him in 5. Well, killed him in 5. And Jake's like pissed, and he's like, you knew my dad? And then Chris is just like, yeah, I knew him. I shot him in the head. Didn't blink. And then they're like face to face, right? And then Jake's like, you son of a bitch, killed my dad. He's like trying to shoot him, right? He's like, "Arr, arr." And like Piers is in the back. He's like, no, don't do it. And then Sherry's like, Jake, put the gun down. And then Chris is just like fucking standing there, just do it. I don't care. I deserve it. Do it. And it's just like in that bravado military man style, and I'm just like talking over it. And it's the best. It was like my favorite part of the game because I'm just adding all this extra ad libbing.
I think they could have done a lot more with Jake.
But yeah, they could have done so much more because like it could have like fleshed out the story of, you know, why did Chris kill Wesker, right? Because like Wesker might have been good when he was with Dr. Birkin, but obviously he went pretty off the walls, you know, a little bit after that, you know, and he caused a lot of harm and a lot of problems for people. And so, like,
considering it was Birkin who gave Wesker his powers as well,
and you can also explain that too, right? Like it allows for this nuance that just is not in this game at all, right? And Jake can be mad. Jake and Sherry can be pissed at Chris at first, right? But like as time goes on and Chris gets the chance to actually talk and explain himself, it could provide a better picture, right? So, I mean, it would suck because you wouldn't have that standoff because it was like the best part of the game, honestly. I mean, it's the dumbest part of the game, but it's the best part of the game, in my opinion. But it's fine. I can live without it. But but it allows for this better nuance with all these characters, right? It just fleshes them all out way better. It's just when you split a game, because the game takes about, if you're going through normally, you know, on like regular or whatever modes, it takes about 4 or 5 hours for each campaign. And there's 4 campaigns. So you have about 20 hours. Imagine that game, but just one character. You know?
Yeah.
Imagine how much better that would be if you just have one character to go through 20 hours of story instead of 4 convoluted stories that only get 5 hours of screen time to tell its story from start to finish. It's just, no.
And I think if you make the comparison to Last of Us, for example, I think the reason why that story was so amazing was because that we had Joel's journey all throughout that game. And it was one journey that we were solely focused on.
Yeah, or a lot of single-player focused games, you know? When you give... And they don't have to be epic sprawling like God of War where they're like 40 hours long. We don't necessarily need that. But it's just give one main character or 2 at the most just enough time to really flesh out a full told story. not just give me the greatest hits version of this. If I want that, I can play something else. But I want the full album. I want that full record. I want that start. I want all the LPs. I don't just want your greatest hits one album. Give me your entire catalog of your story, right? Because then I can be fully invested. I can know your beginnings and then your end. And a better picture. And so, but yeah, basically, Resident Evil 6 would need to be completely redone. Resident Evil 5 is a weird one. If they did all those cool things that you were talking about, I think then they would. But that's almost like it kind of borders between a remake and a redo almost. Because in my opinion, I don't think you would need to co-op either. But you still have that same issue though about white man going to Africa and just shooting a bunch of black people. So like that's still a problem. But I think maybe instead of co-op, separate campaigns like with 2 and 3. Have a campaign for Leon, have a campaign for Shiva.
Yeah.
So even if you do have white guys shooting black people, at least another campaign where there's a black person shooting black people, so it's not so bad. So it's just maybe that'd be the other way to go about it. Instead of being co-op, make it 2 separate campaigns. That'd be like my differing opinion, or not opinion, but just like my solution to that problem. But anyways, we can go on too long here. Let's wrap this up. Is there anything, MrTibbz, that you wanted to say before we kind of close out here?
Just a massive thank you to you, RJ, for letting me come on, because I know it's been a bit of a pain to organise, so I just want to thank you for that. And just anyone who wants to come and check out my channel, please do. Drop a like and subscribe. Be absolutely amazing. And be on the lookout for what we've got coming up next, because there are some amazing things that I have got planned that coming up next. And one of them is very reminiscent to when, I don't know whether you saw this, RJ, of when I did my chili bean challenge, the jelly bean challenge that I did.
I did not see that, no.
So basically, it's an Amazon product called Bean Boozled, and it's 5 different levels of spice in different jelly beans. So it was like, I think it goes from cayenne, sriracha, jalapeno, habanero, and then ghost chili.
How do you go from habanero to ghost? That's a big jump. Okay.
So Gemini did it first, and then he was like, MrTibbz, you're next. So I don't know whether you've seen that one chip challenge. That
one I do know. I do know the one chip challenge, yes.
I have challenged Gemini to that. And I do believe that if and when he does do that, I think he's going to shout me out to try and do it myself. So that will be coming to the channel at some point. But yeah, October is going to be a spooky month, and then we've got a special month in November that I'm doing as well.
All right, well, that sounds great, man. Thanks for letting everybody know. Yeah, I'll leave a description to his channel in my description box below for this podcast. I'm getting tongue-tied. Yes, you'll see a description for his channel and down there, okay? But yeah, thank you again for coming on. I know it's been you've been waiting quite a while. I apologize for the wait, but hey, you're here. We had a good time. So all was well. But yeah, keep a lookout for his stuff. He's a small YouTuber just like myself, looking to grow just like anyone else is. So, pop on over there. If you like his stuff, throw a like on his stuff, throw a subscribe, show him that love. And with that, we're going to wrap up here. Thank you. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe if you want to, hit the bell, do all that fun stuff. And we will see you guys next time. Bye.